If you haven't watched the earlier episodes in this series, you're not going to have a clue what's going on here. However, let's continue on from episode number 3. I realize that I talked about this earlier. However, I find it really interesting that those two brass tubes actually look like they're two different diameters. And the reason for that is because one, the scratches are running lengthways, and the other, they're running radially. Now the plan is to use these two drill bits, which are the same length and exactly the same diameter, as pry bars. And I'm going to try and pry these two, well, I'm not going to try, I'm going to do it. I'm going to break these two brass tubes apart, and we'll just see which one of them more of the CA glue sticks to. And like I said before, if you didn't watch the earlier episodes, you won't have a clue why I'm doing this. Now I realize I demonstrated with the little Allen wrench here. However, I'm going to use this because it's tapered. And also, I realize that when I force these apart, they could all of a sudden go flying apart. So I think I'm going to put the elastic band back on here, sort of. Now, by the way, it doesn't matter if I get grease from my fingers on the brass tubes now, because it's not going to affect the glue. And as I said, if you didn't watch the earlier episodes, you don't know why. Maybe I got too much on there. It doesn't have to be that tight. Okay. Yeah, I think if I put it like that. Okay. Now, if I start forcing it apart, like right here, it should start sort of a tearing action right here. And I'm going to do it nice and slow. Anyway, that's the plan. Well, okay, now I only get one shot at this, so I don't want to screw it up. So here we go. Try and go nice and slow if I can. My, it's harder than I thought. Well, they're apart. Well, is it my imagination? Or is it kind of equal? I don't know. See if I can take a closer look. Now, I'm not going to bother hooking up the microscope adapter to the camera so that we can get in a little closer. It's always a disappointment to me, and it's a lot of work. It's fun, but it's a lot of work for what I consider to be nothing. That adapter is a bit of a disappointment, as I mentioned before in yesterday's video. If I win the lottery, I'll get something better. Then I'll be able to show you. But don't count on it. In the meantime, let's have a nice close look here. And you're just going to have to take my word for it. I won't lie to you. I guess I could have hooked up the TV and you could have watched it in the background. Anyway, this is the first time I'm looking at it through this, by the way. Maybe I'll turn it horizontally. Well, I'm really surprised. If anything, there's more on the brass tube that had the rotary wire brush than the sandpaper. But, you know, it's so close you may as well say it's equal. It's equal. We'll leave it at that. Now I've put my macro lens back on here. The reason being is after I took that last shot, I took another look under the microscope and I actually did find a place where it had broken away from the brass tube. I'm sure glad I didn't bet, because it broke away from the brass tube that was done with the sandpaper. And I would have thought for sure it would have been the other way around. I guess this is why I don't bet. You may recall that number 1 was also a concern to me. The reason being is because of this crack on the outside here, but I don't think it goes all the way into the brass tube. Now, those of you that turn pens, you know that, in fact, any kind of turning, you know that just because it's good on the outside doesn't mean it's going to be good all the way through. Another thing I want you to notice is I'm trying to keep the ends together like this so that the grain will match up, you know, because this will be the nib of the pen out here and this will be where the clip will be. And when I put the pen together, I'd like to have the grain kind of line up. And if it's going to be the same diameter here as it is here, the grain should line up. Okay, and you notice I'm using the small tool rest this time. I can get it nice and close. In fact, I can get in too close if I want. I will start off back here. And I'll start out with this one, see how it goes, and then I'll move over and I'll do the other one. And I'm not going to use the plexiglass here. I'm just going to see how it goes. Maybe it's going to turn out to be a fiasco. And otherwise, you're going to be able to see it a lot clearer if I don't have this covering it up. I know most people seem to like to watch it running in real time. However, this video is getting pretty long already and it's not over, so I had to speed it up here. Well, my plan is to go just a little closer to the bushings with the scraper and then do the rest with the sandpaper. I am noticing a little crack right there, but I've got the feeling it's probably not going to get too much worse. There's a possibility it might even get better, but I don't think so. And it probably will fill with wax, and it'll just add to the character. These knots here, whatever they were, there's no voids at all in them. Okay, a change in plans here. I'm going to try and put some CA medium in that crack, then sand it down. Now I realize that it's running there, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to sand that. And I also am aware that the wood is changing color pretty bad. But you know it's going to be that same color from the wax. So I don't think you're going to even be able to see that I did this. Well, like I've said before, we'll soon know. About 3 minutes has passed now. Let's see if it's hard. Well, not really. About 4 minutes has passed now. You know what? I think I'm going to give it a shot of the curing agent. Well, that was 2 shots. I don't like getting that stuff on my tool rest. I don't know if it's corrosive. Okay, 5 minutes has passed altogether now. The reason I know is because my camera is counting down to 10. Or rather from 10 to 0. Because I only got about 10 minutes video time. In fact, exactly 10 minutes with these settings that I've got. Okay, that's good. Now I'll turn that down just a little bit more and then do some sanding. Okay, now easy does it. Now, as I usually do, I'm going to start out at 220 and I'm going to turn it about 1,000 and I'll end up probably with at least 600 grit. Okay, that's 1,300. After the 220, I used 400, then 800 grit. And now I'm going to use the cut and polish. That's the polish that has the grit in it. Now I don't know what grade of grit it is, but I'm sure that it's finer than 800. Now you're going to notice that when I try to remove it and go over the bushing, it's going to actually cut the metal on the bushing. See that? So I always go from the inside to the end, and that way I'm not going to be rubbing those iron filings into the wood. Okay, I think we're probably safe to crank the RPM now and do a little buffing. The color will not change a whole lot. It will become a little bit more shiny after this first coat. I usually do about 4. That's going to look okay. You notice that crack right there? Well, I guess what I should say is you don't notice that crack right there. So the CA glue kind of filled it. Worked out okay. Well, that's 4 applications of the cut and polish. Now, I'll be using different clips, so I've got an extra clip. If you recall, this was set number 1. So matching should be number 2. Or at least I hope it will. I guess we'll soon know, because I'm going to turn that this afternoon. But being as I'm going to be doing it exactly the same way as these, no use duplicating it. And I guess tomorrow we press.